Welcome to the Hidden World of Women, a podcast brought to you by Women's Health and Wellbeing Services. My name is Emma and I'll be your host for today's episode. Welcome to the third episode in our series, Journey into Motherhood. Today I'm joined by another amazing woman. Monique is a mum to four. She has a cleaning business and also works as a sheet metal fabricator assistant, which is quite unusual, really. You don't see many women who are sheet metal fabricator assistants. Her hobbies include painting Warhammer models, and she has 3 cats and dogs and also enjoys gardening. So thank you very much for joining me today, Monique.
Thank you, Emma. How are you today?
I am not too bad. Very excited for this conversation because it's about a topic that I actually don't know very much about.
Excellent.
So we're talking about you donated eggs for IVF.
I did, yes.
Yeah. So your journey into motherhood itself, your own personal journey, wasn't that, it wasn't out of the ordinary. You've got 4 babies that you fell pregnant with relatively easily, and you went through that whole process without kind of having to go down any of the alternate routes to becoming a mum.
No, not at all. Everything was, I only had to think about it and I was pregnant.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's actually how it works.
No, you get my drift.
I do, 100%. So then you decided to donate eggs for IVF.
Yeah, sort of. I was sitting at work one day and the local newspaper came around and was dropped off, the Chronicle, and I opened it up and had a look, and on one of the front pages there was a couple who had been waiting on the IVF donation list. Mm-hmm. And they'd had 2 children, but unfortunately they both had a very rare dystrophy type disease. By the time the children would be about 10 years old, they would pass. So they'd gone through a series of IVF processes themselves. Unfortunately, the genetic disorder was carried by both parents. Oh. So they tried splicing her egg, which didn't work. It just made them too weak. So they were looking for a donor. And after reading the story, I was quite heartbroken and thought, I wonder if there's anything I can do. And I made contact with the IVF clinic that was putting that advert in the paper. So just for 2 random strangers? 2 random strangers, yeah.
Oh, wow. So what was the process from there?
So I made contact, went in for an appointment. They went through a psychological appointment to make sure that I wasn't some crazy nutter that was going to jump up and down and demand my eggs back years later or something.
I was kind of thinking just that, you're just the crazy nutter that sees somebody's story and goes, here, have part of my biological makeup.
So you have to go through a little bit of screening. Because I was married, they also had to screen my husband to make sure that he was okay with me donating my eggs.
You must have talked to him beforehand.
Oh, yes, most definitely. And my children as well.
Yeah.
I made sure everybody was aware of what I was thinking, and moving forward, we all sort of went in. Well, not the children, but my husband and I went in and had our interviews. We had to agree to having your name on a register where the embryos, should they become human beings, that in 16 years' time they could be given your information.
Oh,
so
wow.
In 16 years, if they decided to get in contact with you, they might turn up on your doorstep. So that was something you had to also be aware of.
Oh, how did you feel about that?
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. They ask you why you want to donate, what's your reason behind it and what have you. And I mean, mine is that I've had 4 children. 2 of them are adults now and moved out of home and have their own lives, and I have 2 younger ones still at home. But they just bring me so much joy, and I can't understand why anybody would want to miss out on that.
Yeah, yeah.
And if they struggle, of course, you want to be able to help where you can.
I'm writing I'm giving a speech tomorrow at an event, and it's saying, from the age of 3, all I ever wanted to be was a mum.
Yeah.
And I used to have nightmares that I would accidentally become a nun and then I wouldn't be able to have children, which didn't happen, thank goodness. But, I can't, as you say, I can't imagine not being able to have children when I wanted to be a mum from the age of 3. So for other people going through that, it's a really beautiful gift.
I know not everybody wants children these days, but back when I was young, it was something that was, it was just the done thing. You got married, you had children, it was your way, you followed in your mum's footsteps. So
it's funny because there's not that much difference in our age.
No.
But when I was going to school, it wasn't the done thing. So you needed to have your career first, and once you've had your career, then think about having children. So, I had my first baby when I was 23, and that was you know, so many people are like, oh, you're ruining your life. You'll never have a career if you're having a baby at this age. And what are you doing? Why aren't you establishing that first? And definitely saying that having a baby was a lesser option than having a career.
Wow, because these days you can juggle and have both.
Well, that's exactly what I'm doing.
So that's right.
Yeah, you don't have to choose one or the other. But yeah, so interesting. And just because there are only a few years between us, that it changed so much so significantly so quickly. Yeah. But anyway, back to you. So you went in, they talked to you, they talked to your husband, you had to go through some psych testing, and then obviously you have to agree to them potentially coming and contacting you in 16 years.
Yes.
And then what happens from there?
Okay, then they did a full physical. So I had to have a series of blood tests done, internal and external ultrasounds to ensure that there wasn't any abnormalities in any way. Unfortunately, if you do have an abnormality in your cervix or uterus or ovaries, such as cancer, going on the hormones can expedite its growth. So they make sure that you are completely healthy in it, and the drugs that they give you will not harm you. Then on the, I think it was the last day of a period, they went through a series of injections. I had to go in from day 12 to about day 16 every day for another ultrasound. The injections were very simple, just a little pen that sort of popped in your belly, a hormone to... It was just to help the ovaries release more ovum rather than your 1 or 2 that you would usually release. It helps to sort of up those numbers.
So could you self-administer that injection, or did you have to have your husband do that?
No, I did it myself.
It must be easy now, because I think you used to have them in your butt, which is obviously quite tricky to self-administer.
In your butt would be difficult. No, it was just a little squeeze of the sort of fat layer on your belly. Hopefully you have a fat layer. And then you put the pen against you, you push a little button on the end of it, and it does it. It was very, very simple, and the little cartridge just got changed every day when you were going ahead with that. On a specific day, they would give you what they called a trigger injection, which was to release as many eggs as possible at once. So when you're at the right level for the ovums to be released, the trigger would then allow them all to release at once. Then it was in for day surgery. An anaesthetist would come in. And administer the drugs for you to go to sleep. It's called Twilight, I do believe.
Okay.
So you're not asleep, but you don't remember it afterwards. So I went in for my...
That's my worst fear, what I'm likely to do or say under twilight sedation.
I have no idea what I said, except that I'm going to be sick, apparently, was what I'd said quite a lot. I did actually end up vomiting afterwards. It wasn't a very nice situation for me, because being a redhead, anaesthetic doesn't work the same on me as what it does on everybody else. And high tendency to vomit afterwards. So it wasn't pretty. But they managed to extract 11 eggs. So they do that vaginally. So you're a little sort of tender afterwards. But it's not like giving birth or anything. So it's just a little tender. They managed to extract 11 the first time. And recovery was about an hour and a half afterwards. So it wasn't too bad. I was sore for a day and back at work the following day.
Oh, wow. So okay, I've got questions.
Yes.
So the 11 eggs, do you know, did they actually go to the couple that you had seen in the newspaper?
No.
So you don't know, or they didn't?
No, they didn't.
Okay.
They didn't. For when I went in for my initial consultation with them,
they said, actually, we don't want a redhead.
No. I'm joking. No, I had tattoos done recently. And you have to have 12 months between a tattoo or piercing before you can donate your eggs. It must have 12 months in between. And then you go through a series of blood tests afterwards to ensure that there's no...
HIV, hepatitis C, any of those kinds of things.
Full screening. They do compensate you financially in the sense that any out-of-pocket expenses for parking, days off work, etc. It's around about $1,000, which I suppose some people might think is great.
No one's getting rich off that.
But nobody's getting rich.
That doesn't feel like it's a...
No.
it's not a career move that I'm going to make.
No, definitely not. But once you hit 40, they can't use your eggs are no longer viable for them for IVF. So not for donation.
Yeah.
Possibly for personal, but not donation, unfortunately.
Yeah. So do you... And my other question was, you said that first time.
Yes.
So you did it again?
I did it twice. Both times they got 11 eggs, which apparently is quite a high number. They usually get around 7 apparently. So 11 is pretty good for them.
So then, do you know what happens with the eggs?
There is a website that you can go to where there's a egg and donation register.
Yeah.
You can also, if you were to donate sperm, you can do the same thing. I don't know if my husband would like me saying this, but he donated his for a bit as well, just to sort of support me along the way, which was great.
Well, you can ask him, and if he says he doesn't like you saying it, I'll cut it out.
Okay. There you go. No, he donated a series of, I think they need 11 specimens, I think it is, in the end, which he did. And he has a really high sperm count as well. So, which is probably one of the reasons that you just need to think about getting pregnant. Yes. That happens. And it's there. That's it. So do you don't have any kind of, so like there's no control over making sure that you don't get to choose where they go or anything like that. They're just there and anyone can access them. How does that work? Not exactly. When you go through your original screening process, they do go through a series of questions in the sense of would it be okay if they were donated to a same-sex couple or a single parent? And you have to obviously answer that quite honestly, and they will try and keep in mind what your requests would be. I don't have a problem with same-sex couples. I don't have a problem with single parents. I do believe that double parents is better for the child's stability, but not necessary.
Yeah.
So they were happy with that.
Yeah, I think it definitely depends on the parents, doesn't it? You can have some amazing single parents, and you can have some families that have got two parents that
are just shocking.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
6 of one, half a dozen of the other in that 100% case. Yeah.
But then, so you went back and you did it again?
I did, yes. Yeah, I did it a second time. Yeah. When I rang them the third time, which was I had to wait 12 months in between.
Okay.
When I went back the third time, I'd actually had another child and had turned 40, and they said, unfortunately, after 40, the eggs are not really viable for donation. Yeah. And they would rather not put me through that again. So with the put you through that again, what's that actually like? So my only kind of, I guess, reference point for this is watching movies where, they are injecting the woman and her hormones are through the roof and she's perhaps not her best self. I didn't actually have very many side effects, like mood-wise.
Do you think your husband would agree?
Yes, I do, actually. I was working in West Perth at the time, so driving from 50 kilometres south of that every day.
Oh my God!
And I had a 2-year-old, I think, at the time.
Yeah,
I think
wow.
Willow was 2. So backwards and forwards, children at childcare, very, very busy.
Yeah.
It wasn't an issue. We still kept on top of everything we needed to. I didn't seem to. Sometimes when your hormones are chaotic and, you all of a sudden you're watching a movie and, oh, my God, it's just so terrible, and you burst into tears. I didn't have that sort of reaction. Yeah. So my hormones seemed to be fairly level. I do remember breast tenderness, though. And I didn't really have breast tenderness before that when it was PMT time.
Yeah.
But since I do. So I don't know if it was a
like
side effect or
hormones. Yeah,
just unfortunately huge. So I've never really had much sense of feeling in them. Yeah. But afterwards, I do now. So I don't know if it's a bonus or a curse, but
and so with doing this, and it's the same with your husband as well. But do you have sort of thoughts that somewhere out there's a part of you? Or perhaps there's 22 parts of you out there?
Yes, well, we often have a little bit of a laugh when someone says, how many children do you have? We go, well, I have 4, but a possible additional 22. And they look at you like, I beg your pardon. And the whole family sort of has a little personal giggle because we all know what we're talking about. Obviously, with my husband, donating sperm could be hundreds. So It's it is a bit funny. I did get contacted about 6 months after my second donation, asking for some additional tests for one of my medical conditions, because the person who wanted to accept my egg had a similar medical condition, and they needed to know what section of... Okay, I have hemochromatosis, which is to say high iron. Well. Yeah. So you have a heterozygous side of it, which is healthy, and you have a homozygous, which is unhealthy. So the homozygous, from my understanding, attacks the liver, etc., where the heterozygous just gives you high iron. So you just have to be careful on your iron levels and make sure that, if you're not menstruating, that you start to donate blood. So they had that as well. So they needed to go through and make sure that mine would be compatible with theirs and not conflicting. Yeah. And I have no idea whether they actually use the egg or not, because they don't follow back up with that. Yeah. And I haven't looked on the register, So you can go onto the register and see whether or not. And does it actually tell you who? No, it tells you the sex. So if your egg was viable for somebody who has accepted your donation, it will let you know whether it was a male producing or female producing ovum. But you haven't done that? No, I haven't. Can I ask what stopped you? I've been busy with my own life, for one. Yeah. Not needing to know, I suppose. Yeah. It's not mine. Yeah. Even though it's mine, it's not mine. Yeah. If it grows in somebody else and it is their child, they're raising it, then it's theirs, not mine. I sort of feel like I don't actually have a right to look it up. Yeah. I suppose. Perhaps, in 15, 20 years' time, perhaps I might have a look. Or maybe as it gets closer to that 16-year mark. Actually, it's about 10 years now, so... Yeah. Yeah, so I do sort of think maybe one day I'll look it up. If there's knocks at the door, definitely I'll be starting to get curious, but we haven't had anything come forward yet, so it does sit in the back of your mind. I wonder if, you walk past a redhead and go, I wonder if that could be mine. Yeah. Although I haven't produced any redheads myself. Oh, they're sort of heading there. Yes. And... So with that in mind, how do you think you would feel if you did have that knock at the door? I hope that the person has had a good life and they come to say thank you, and not knock on the door and say, I've had an awful life, you cursed me. Oh, that's sort of what goes through my head. I would rather them knock at the door and say, thank you for giving me the opportunity of having a wonderful life with wonderful family and wonderful parents. You did a great thing, rather than, why did you let somebody like that have your eggs? Because I've had a terrible life. That is one fear that does sort of creep up. I hadn't even thought about that. Yeah. And so the child can potentially contact you. Yes. Can the child's parents? So no. They can't? No. Ah. No. It's only the ovum, the production of the ovum that can. Yeah. Oh, that's really interesting. Because, I don't know, would you like to hear from those parents to know that, that it's made a difference? It would be nice to know that you've done something good in the world, but I already know I've done something good because I gave my eggs already. So that's it. The verification of the pat on the back, you've done a great job, is nice, but not necessary, if that makes sense. Yeah, no, I think that that definitely makes sense. It's around the fact that whether or not a baby actually, or a child, or person came of that act, you still were prepared to, you still gave your eggs in order for that to happen. So, yes. Regardless of what the end result is. My sister struggled with pregnancy, miscarried a bit, and I often wondered if she would ever have to go down this avenue. Lucky for her, she didn't have to go down that avenue, but watching her go through that sort of pain was... it's sort of a psychological kick, I suppose, of, if you could help somebody, you're helping somebody who struggles. Like you've seen somebody close to you struggle. You've seen other people struggle. Maybe you can help out. It doesn't matter whether you know them or not. You're still helping somebody try and overcome that pain. Yeah. Because not being able to produce is very painful. And I already know the answer to this because you tried to do it a third time, but would you do it again? Yes. And if there was somebody else who's listening to this and who's maybe thinking about
thinking about whether or not they could donate eggs, or, you know, if there's a man listening who's thinking about whether they could donate sperm, what would you say to them?
I went to a reputable clinic. They are in the city, so there's a little bit of distance for travel, I suppose. Be willing and prepared to be fondled, because they touch everything.
Yeah, but they're not only touching everything, but they're into every element of your life as well.
Every corner, yeah. They check. They ask you questions about your menstruating, whether it's regular, whether you have any abnormalities, anything goes wrong. Then they go through, you know, whether you have eyesight problems, deafness in the family. They check absolutely everything with you, so that whoever they're potentially giving your eggs to, they have as much background as possible.
Another odd question. There's lots of odd questions. I'm sorry, Monique.
It's okay.
Do you have a kind of fear? So you donated in between your two youngest children.
I did.
Is there something out that you kind of think, when they bring home potential partners?
Yes. The thought
are they going to be related? Yeah. Like, do you need to say, oh, honey, you know, before things get serious, maybe we need to think about having some genetic testing done?
Yeah.
Make sure you're not half siblings?
I hope that at the point where my children will be sexually active, where it would probably count, that we've been able to meet the parents and have that conversation, so that there is some sort of clarity on, did you happen to have a donation, because we could be in trouble here. I haven't broached that yet. My two younger ones are still a bit young, and my older ones won't date younger than them, so it's kind of a bonus there. But yes, in between the younger two, the thought does play in my mind. Yes.
Yeah. So with all that, what was the hardest part about donating?
Probably the surgery itself and the pain that you've got to go through. I think everything leading up to that is so supportive. All the testing that they're doing to make sure that your entire body is safe for the procedure is fantastic. They're very good, very friendly. Maybe because I was a donor, rather than doing it for myself. Yeah. But getting to the point.
And a donor for an unknown person.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, which feels so much bigger. Like, it's huge if you donate for somebody who you know, but just to help random strangers who you've never met because you read an article in a paper.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's huge.
Well, you know. It's we always try and do good with our lives, and give back where we can, and we all do that in one way or another. Some of us are a little bit more selfish than others, but I think, you know, deep down we're all good people, and we all try somewhere. Some of us more than others, I suppose. That's all.
So with removing the eggs, is that done with a needle?
It is.
Because I sort of can't really quite work out how they do that.
I don't believe it's a needle as in like a puncture needle. I think it's more like a flat-ended needle, because they get to the ovary and then extract the ovum.
Okay.
So I think they have like just a long tube rather than a needle per se. And then, of course, they need the suction to be able to get them out. So, yeah.
Oh, wow. I don't know what. I just assumed that they
It's not needle as in I'm going to stab you in the belly.
Well, that's what I thought they did.
No, they go vaginally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That must be a really decent sized needle, though.
Yeah. I would think so.
I can imagine why that was uncomfortable.
Yes. So,
but it can't have been too bad, because you went back and did it again.
Yes, I did. Yeah, yeah. It was only sore literally for the day. Yeah. So I was tired. I think it was more the anaesthesia than the actual extraction. But it was like having. It's not even a bad period. It was just a little pain. Yeah. Just a little bump in the belly type thing.
Discomfort type stuff. Yeah. And then do the eggs last a certain amount of time?
They cryo freeze them, so I have no idea how long they last.
So if they come to the end of I'm going to use shelf life. So if they come to the end of their shelf life, do they contact you and say, "Hey, do you want these back?"
No.
So they just,
because it's a donation.
Yeah, okay.
If it was yours, they
Yeah.
probably would. I've heard of people having them in cryo-frozen for however long for
Yeah.
themselves
Yeah.
when they're trying, and they might not be able to afford the process or whatever, so they have it set aside for
Yeah.
when they are able to get back to that point. And I mean, it's not just financial. Some people have that psychological issues where they just
Yeah.
need to stop for
Yeah.
a bit and recuperate. So
But because it's a donation, you've given
Yeah.
it, so
it's not mine anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure what you do with it if they said, do you want these back? Yeah, not really.
No.
I've got my 4 children. I probably don't need to have one surgically implanted if I want another one.
Not unless you can make it a boy.
Yeah.
If you make it a boy, that might be different.
You've got one boy.
I have one boy, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One's
3 girls.
Yeah, I've got
one
one boy.
boy.
One's enough.
Yeah. They are a handful.
And so I guess if somebody's family member, what was the, I guess the weirdest response that you had from a family member when you were telling them that you were likely to do this?
Actually, I didn't have any weird responses at all from
So,
my
all supportive?
children and my
Yeah.
husband. Very supportive. My dad said, "Why the hell would you want to do that?" As soon as I said why, he went, "Oh, fair enough."
Yeah.
So yeah, no weird responses per se.
And nobody had any moral objections to it or anything like that?
No.
Yeah, oh, that's
No.
awesome. And if you I guess if you met somebody whose family member was thinking about donating eggs, what would you say to them?
I would explain the situation that I had gone through, the procedure, and offer my support if necessary, if they needed support. I have had a friend who had to go through IVF. She went back 7 times before she was able to actually have children. She had one boy, and unfortunately she can't have anaesthetic. So she was awake through the whole procedure, and she said it was quite painful to have the procedure done whilst awake, and they were only able to extract 5 eggs from her. So she went through the process, as I said, 7 times before she was able to have a child, and then she had 1, and she said, I'm never doing that again.
Yeah.
It's very, very painful for her, obviously not being able to have anaesthetic. But she said she wouldn't have stopped if she hadn't gotten the baby. She would have tried again.
Yeah.
She's very, very happy, obviously, with her boy. He's the same age as Willow, actually.
And
So
so I guess for you, it comes down to how important it feels for you to be a mum and wanting to make sure that people who are struggling, who they have aspirations to be parents, that they actually have that ability to be able to fulfill that dream.
definitely.
And yeah, if you had come across anybody who had been against the idea, or if you were talking to somebody who was going to go through this and they were coming up against somebody who was against the idea, do you have any thoughts about what you would say to them?
It's none of your business in the first place, probably, would be the first thing out of my mouth. But I generally
You haven't got anything nice to say. Don't say anything at all.
Well, there's always that. I've always liked to listen to people's reasons as to why they think it's wrong. Generally, in some discussions over the years, I've heard people say it's against religious belief. It's not what God intended. If they shouldn't have children, why would you give them the opportunity? I believe that maybe sometimes God is wrong.
Well, here's another thought. As somebody who's not a religious person, despite the fact I said I was worried I'd accidentally become a nun, it was very unlikely given that we're not a religious family. But could you not look at it that actually, if God didn't want people to have children when they were struggling, he wouldn't create scientists who were able to come up with methods like this?
Yes.
So actually maybe we're just God's plan just looks a little bit different.
There's the old story of the man in the boat, and he got capsized and stranded, and somebody came along and offered him a lift, and he said, no, it's okay, God, I believe in God, he will save me. And then he ends up drowning and turns up at the pearly gates, and he says, why didn't you save me? He said, I sent you a boat.
Yeah. What more did you want,
What more
buddy?
do you want? That was my outstretched hand.
That's it.
So if we weren't supposed to be doing this, there wouldn't be the opportunity or know how. We wouldn't have learnt the knowledge on how to.
Yeah.
So, but if I was faced with it, I think having the opportunity to help somebody, support somebody in giving them the opportunity to experience life like that is a miracle in itself. And for somebody to sit there and shun that is really sad on their part.
Oh, I forgot a question. So I asked you what the hardest part of the process was. What was the best part of the process?
A little bit of euphoria knowing I'm helping somebody achieve some joy that I already have. But on a little side note and a selfish note, I know that my body had no cancer at the time.
Yeah.
The screening was so damn good.
Yeah.
That, there was absolutely no way that there was anything wrong with my body or they wouldn't have gone ahead.
I was thinking, some added bonuses there.
Yeah,
Not
the
many
free
people
screening.
get that many screenings and going through and, did you have genetic testing as well as part of that?
No, I don't think they do genetic
okay.
testing. But they did do the blood test to find out what the hemochromatosis was that I had and the exact ratio of what it is, etc. So that was something I didn't know beforehand.
Yeah.
So I wasn't able to donate blood before, and I can now. So
awesome.
yeah.
So not only did you get the $1,000,
Yes.
but a whole heap of testing that gave you the health all clear.
Yes, it did.
Which must have been, I suppose there's a little part of you that has something going, oh gosh, anything could be happening and we don't know about it. And you hear all these awful stories. So
I definitely felt a sigh of relief for about 6 months afterwards going, woohoo, there's absolutely no chance I have anything wrong. So it did give you that little happy.
Did you have to go through all of those screenings for the second time as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
You have to go through both.
Was that because, and so you had to go through all the psychological screenings?
No, the psychological, because it was the same place. I didn't have to do the psychological screening again. But they do the physical, medical, etc., because they need to make sure that everything is okay.
Nothing's happened in the meantime. Yeah. And that was just because, so you'd had, how long in between? Between the both?
I think it was 3 years between.
Yeah,
3 years, because I'd had a child in between as well. Yeah.
But you have to wait a year, is that what you said?
Every 12 months I did it, I was trying to do it,
I was just wondering whether or not if you'd done it sooner, would you still need to do those tests? But I imagine you would, because
I think you still have to go through it just to make sure that there aren't any abnormal cells.
Yeah.
Because abnormal cells will grow at 10 times the rate under the hormonal treatment.
Yeah.
The same as when you're pregnant.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say, because obviously you'd had a baby as well in that time. Anything that could have been brewing may have...
That we didn't know about, would have surfaced. Yeah. So they double check.
Yeah. And what about your husband? Did he find any positives for you going through this?
I haven't actually asked him, because
it was your journey, not his.
Yeah, it was my journey. He was supportive, which was great. And he made sure that I didn't need anything. He would make sure I've got my needle and I'm okay. And he was just really, really supportive. He always is, which is great.
Yeah.
But no, I don't think there's anything extra there.
Yeah. And any final thoughts at all?
No, I think I'd do it again if I could, but being too old, obviously I can't.
Do you think your kids will after having seen you do this?
Not sure. My 14-year-old, who, she's obviously coming into womanhood, etc., says she's not having any children.
Yeah.
So whether she would or wouldn't, I don't know. The younger one reckons she's going to have 5 kids. So,
I wanted 8.
Yes.
And then I had 1. Rethought that process.
Yeah. We do tend to establish our priorities there, do we?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much for all of your thoughts today. I really appreciate that. I've learned so much. I honestly didn't know, I didn't know what I didn't know, but I didn't know what any of the process was like. I sort of can't, obviously I knew that people donated eggs and sperm, but I had no idea how you would actually start that. So,
well, in the nitty gritties of it, they take the ovum on the day of ovulation, because that's when they're ready for fertilization. Yeah. You can't get pregnant before that. You can't get pregnant after that. It's only on that day. So that's why they take it on that particular day. I could tell you why you have a girl and how you have a boy as well. Go for it. Yeah. So if you were to have sex with somebody who's really quite active, it's less likely that you'll have a boy, because the male sperm is weaker than the female sperm. if you were to have intercourse up to, I think it's 8 days prior to ovulation, the female sperm, the male sperm dies very quickly within hours, but the female sperm goes to sleep. So it just sort of nestles in on the fallopian tubes. Or
I'm sorry, that is not what my household is like. It is definitely the boys in my household that are snuggling down for a sleep.
I know. But no, it's the girls in that particular instance. And when the ovum is released, it actually sends out a pheromone that wakes them back up, and then they swim up to the egg. If you have intercourse on the day of ovulation, that's where you're more likely to have a boy.
There you go.
There you go.
And I suppose maybe it's different for each person. I don't know whether or not you would know this. But when they have the egg, can they just implant that into the potential mother, or do they have to... So if you're doing the donor eggs, do they have to actually fertilise it and implant the fertilised egg?
I believe they fertilise it first to make sure it will take.
Yeah.
Once it's taken, then they put it back in.
Yeah, because I know obviously if you're, if you're using your own eggs that are still inside you and they're not taking them out, then they can just kind of put the sperm in and then it...
Turkey baste it?
Yeah, that's it.
There was a lady there that did that actually.
Yeah.
She was a single mum and bought sperm.
Yeah.
So she had to go in for a checkup. So we're all sitting in a room, all gas bagging. And she'd gone in and bought her own sperm so she could have a baby by herself. Yeah. So they do that too. Yeah.
I guess that's kind of part of this is that there are lots of different ways to become a parent. And, often, I think you were saying before about when you have people in your life who perhaps are struggling to have children, you kind of think, well, there's, where did I come from? Oh, well, when a mummy and a daddy love each other very much.
The stork comes flying by.
That's it. Drops them off. Wouldn't that be nice? But there are so many different ways to have babies. And it's not, yes, when a mummy and a daddy love each other very much is probably...
a nice traditional fairy tale to tell your kids.
And maybe the easier option. Mm-hmm. It's nice when it is just a case of that's how it happens. But sometimes there are medical procedures involved and giant needles and turkey basters and, or looking at adoption. There's lots of different ways to become a parent. And
fostering.
They're
short on fosterers, so.
Yeah. It's not just a case of having two parents who are married and decide to have a child.
You don't even have to be married these days. So.
Well, no, most definitely not. No, definitely not. So, but yeah, thank you very much for being part of today's podcast. I really appreciate it. As I said, I've learned so much because I wasn't part of my journey, so I just didn't know anything about it. And what I really love about this podcast is getting a chance to talk to, you can read it in a book,
yes,
but it's not the same. So it's really great for me to get to talk to people and go, okay, no, just take this back again. What was that actually like?
It's a bit like pregnancy and birth. Everybody's is different.
It really is. Yeah, no, most definitely. But I think that with that comes, I guess, the more that we can share and the more people that we can talk to, the more we can break down some of this stigma about it. And that,
definitely.
And I just keep saying it over and over again, but it's not just when a mummy and a daddy love each other very much. There are so many different options, but how many times do we talk? I didn't know. I mean, I've known you for a little while now.
Few years.
Yeah. I didn't know that you'd been through this. And you're quite an open person, obviously, based on the fact that we're chatting here today. But how many other people have been through IVF and don't talk about it?
Yeah, because it's not taboo per se, but it's very personal.
It is very personal.
So personal doesn't always get shared.
Yeah, which is tricky because then if you're going through it, or, for example, if you've got friends who are going through donating for other people, or whether that's strangers or people they know, do they then become concerned about sharing it? And so that journey is really quite isolating because do you know other people who have donated?
No, I don't. No. I'm the only person. I do know the article I read, which prompted me for this in the first place, had said that this couple that were looking for the eggs, they were 88th on the list. They'd been on the list for 8 years and had only come down to 80th on the list. They just do not have enough donations.
Oh, my goodness. So that was about 10 years ago.
That was about 10 years ago.
So it'd be interesting to know what those stats are now, and I will try and have a look, see if I can find them before this podcast goes out. But, that's huge.
Yeah.
To be 88th or 80th on the list and to be 8 years waiting.
Yeah, it's like a year. Yeah, you're not going to be able to have children at 80.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, God.
no, if they were waiting that long, they would never be able to have that miracle baby that they were hoping to have. So,
yeah. Oh, that's really. And did you happen to see if there was a follow up to see whether or not they did actually end up getting their miracle baby?
No.
Seriously, they need to do follow-ups on these things.
No, they didn't do a follow-up.
I get invested.
I know. No, they didn't do a follow-up. I did keep an eye on the paper for the next 12 months and there was nothing. And then, of course, within that 12 months, that's when I was starting to donate. And I said to them, would those couples still like it? They said no. So they're not interested at the moment. So
whether
they
that
didn't
means
tell
they've
me
had
they
a baby.
can't.
Yeah, no, of course. Whether they've had a baby or whether
details.
they've gone, you know what, we can't do this anymore. It's all too much and too hard.
Yeah. So I went through Pivot Medical Centre and they are in Leaderville.
Because that's what I was wondering whether or not, and obviously you said that you went through a proper clinic and I think anything that's in a back alley with a folding table maybe avoid.
Definitely not a clinic.
Yeah.
Not one that I would want to go to.
No,
anyway.
that's it. But I wouldn't even know, are there many clinics around?
I only know of a couple and Pivot had the best recommendations that I had seen. And they were the ones who actually posted the article in the newspaper as well, which is why I contacted them directly.
Yeah.
There was another group that I went to see if they would take my eggs after I was 40 and they said no, they didn't do it. They said basically anybody you contact is going to tell you no because the donation, people don't want an egg from somebody who's over 40 is the problem.
It's really hard, isn't it? And I'm going off on a tangent, which is very unlike me. But if you're 88th on a waiting list, then...
You wouldn't think it would matter.
Yeah, that's it. I struggle. So, with you saying about blood donation, I was in the UK, and so I can't be a blood or an organ donor because of that. And you think, can you not just wash it? Like, if somebody's going to die, surely my potential mad cow blood or...
Potential. It's... You haven't got it.
No, that's
if you haven't got symptoms by now, but the potential of it being there. So
would we rather somebody die than risks having the potential blood that I could give that saves them? Or, God forbid, an organ. Yeah. So same with, your over is over 40 years old.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's because the later, obviously, that you are pregnant, the more chance of Down syndrome and other birth defects. So I think that's what comes into play there.
Yeah. And look, I get it. It's 40 years old. It says, I'm not that much younger than you. So 40 isn't that old, obviously.
No.
But for reproductive purposes, 40 is on the older end of the scale. And I get it. And it's not being used now. It's potentially being frozen and being kept for how long, and we don't know how that impacts it.
Yes.
But still give it a crack.
My husband and I talked about having another child.
You're insane.
I know. But my daughter has already had a child, and that sort of gave me the wake-up call of it's not my turn anymore.
Yeah.
But to sit down and do the math, my child, by the time I'm 60, I'm getting ready to retire, and my child is just coming of age.
Yeah.
It's just cruel to think that you're not going to be around for them. Between 60 and 70, if you get to that, you're pretty lucky. Yeah. So my child would be just coming into adulthood and I'd be saying goodbye. It's just not enough. I'm never going to see them get married, never going to see them have children. So,
saying that though, right now you're never going to see them get married or have children either.
No,
so
it's true.
Not that I'm trying to talk you into having another baby. So if your husband listens to this, I promise that was not my intention.
No, my daughter's already had a child. He's just turned 10. Yeah. So I had my last one, and 9 months later, my daughter had her first one. So
she was getting in quick to tell you that that's enough, Mum.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So take my hat off. It's not my turn. It's the next generation's turn. Yeah. So.
And whether or not that next generation is still biologically somewhat linked to you, because whether those eggs are still sitting there frozen that other people are still able to access and use.
Don't know because I didn't access the
oh my goodness
database.
I'm so nosy. I so want to go, let's just log in and have a look. Go on.
I'm nervous to do it. So because I'm nervous, I sort of avoid it, I guess, a little bit. I'm not sure if I want to know. I could have 5 boys out there and then get really upset that I've only got one at home, you know. So,
but at the same time, that's 5 gifts that you've given to different families.
It is.
That's huge. And as I said, even if no babies are out there, it's still a massive gift that you've given that people had the opportunity to be able to try that. It's just it's amazing. I absolutely take my hat off to you.
Thanks.
I just, it's fantastic.
Like I said, the pat on the back's nice, but it's the
well, I know
gift
you
is
didn't come in
there,
just so I could say well done.
Yeah, no.
So, I could have done that via text message. It was fine.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so I've wrapped it up 3 times now. I'm actually going to wrap it up this. No, it's my fault. I go off on tangents and I'm not very good at ending things because I was like, oh, hang on, I've just thought of another question. But I'm just checking. I think my thing was just around the, you're nervous and you're not sure. I really think that perhaps getting some counselling in the next 3 to 4 years. So
it might be imminent.
Yeah, because kind of 2 years after that, you could start having those knocks on the door. And
I'm prepared for the knock at the door. I am.
Yeah.
I just
might be nice if it was less of a shock, though. You know.
Yeah, no. My fear is that they will have had difficulties in their life and blame me for giving myself over, or and I'm hoping it's more the other way, where they've had a fantastic life and they're grateful for being here and part of this world.
Surely. I say this with as much hope and as anything, but surely if parents are that desperate for a baby that they're going through IVF and donate, because it's not cheap to have a baby through IVF, and going through that process, surely they must see that baby as an absolute miracle, and that baby must be cherished and loved, and they're likely to have an amazing life.
You would think so.
Well, I'm really going to hope so.
It would be so hard to think of it in any other way.
Yeah, let's not. Let's stick with that.
Yeah. Definitely.
Because that really works for my beautiful picture of the way the world should work.
Yeah. Definitely. No, if you're going to go through the hard yards of putting those acceptances that your body can't do it as well, and going, but I still want my own, I still want to have that ability to carry and still have the experience of the pregnancy and the birth, and you go through all that hassle to get there, and then the amount of financial cost on top. Yes, I would hope that at the end of that, the person receiving it is blessed and knows that they are blessed. Yeah. Because it is definitely a blessing.
And all babies bring blessings. And I think that is a beautiful place for me to press the stop button.
Excellent.
Thank you so much for joining me today. I very much appreciate it. As I said, I've learnt so much, and it's really made me think. So thank you. And I look forward to chatting with you later.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you for joining me for today's episode of A Hidden World of Women, a podcast brought to you by Women's Health and Wellbeing Services. For more information on the services we offer, head to whws.org.au or Women's Health and Wellbeing Services on YouTube and social media. Looking forward to the next episode where we uncover the hidden world of women.